The frustrating part of gardening isn't planting seeds, it's watching something that once looked full of life slowly lose its strength. Leaves start turning pale. Stems go soft. Growth slows down until the plant just sits there, almost frozen in time. And at that point, most gardeners think the same thing. It's over. I killed it. But here's something most gardeners don't realize. In many cases, that plant isn't dead at all. It's starving. Not for water, not for sunlight, but for the right kind of nutrition inside the soil. And today I'm going to show you something that can completely change how you look at struggling plants. 6 homemade fertilizers that can help revive almost dead plants faster than most people expect, and using ingredients you probably already have at home. But before we get into the solutions, you need to understand what's really happening underneath your plant. Because if you miss this part, no fertilizer in the world will give you lasting result. Let's start from the beginning. Number 1. The silent garden warning, the wake-up soil moment. Picture this. You walk into your garden in the morning, expecting fresh green growth, but instead, you see tired plants. Yellow leaves, weak stems, maybe even plants that look like they've given up completely. That moment hits differently. Because it doesn't just feel like a gardening problem, it feels personal. You start thinking about everything you did right, and everything you might have done wrong. And this is where most gardeners get stuck. They start adding more water. Or they run to buy stronger fertilizers. Sometimes they even replace the plant entirely. But the problem often stays the same or gets worse. At first, this looks like random plant failure. But it's not random at all. It's a warning. A quiet signal from the soil that something underneath has gone out of balance. And that imbalance usually doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly. A little overwatering here. A lack of organic matter there. Soil that once felt alive slowly becomes compact, tired, and empty of nutrients. The plant is still trying to survive, but it's working with almost nothing. Now here's the important shift you need to make. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with my plant?" you start asking, "What's wrong with my soil?" Because once you understand that difference, everything changes. And that's exactly where today's video begins to make sense. We're not just talking about quick fixes. We're talking about restoring the environment that feeds your plants from the roots up. And in a few moments, I'll show you 6 simple homemade fertilizers that can start bringing that balance back, using everyday ingredients that most people throw away without thinking twice. But first, we need to go deeper. Because the real reason plants stop growing is hidden where most gardeners never look. Let's uncover that next. Number 2. Why plants stop growing. The invisible soil collapse. When a plant starts struggling, most people assume it needs more water, more sunlight, or a stronger fertilizer. But in reality, the problem often runs much deeper than what you can see on the surface. The soil itself slowly loses balance. Every time you water your plants, a small part of the nutrients gets washed away. Every time you skip feeding the soil organic matter, the living structure inside it becomes weaker. And over time, the soil stops behaving like a living system and starts acting more like empty dust holding a plant in place. This is where the real issue begins. Because healthy soil is not just dirt. It's a living environment filled with microbes, organic matter, and nutrients working together. When that system breaks down, plants can still look alive for a while, but inside, they are slowly starving. Most gardeners don't realize this until it's too late. They see yellowing leaves and think it's a plant problem. But often, it's a soil problem that has been building for weeks or even months. Overwatering makes it worse by pushing oxygen out of the soil. Poor compost or repeated chemical feeding can also disturb microbial life. And once that underground balance is gone, plants lose their ability to absorb nutrients properly. So even if you keep feeding them, they cannot use what you're giving. That's why so many rescued plants fail again after a few days. The surface gets treated, but the root problem stays untouched. Now here's the shift you need to understand. If you restore the soil environment, the plant often starts recovering on its own. It doesn't need force. It needs support. And that's where homemade fertilizers become powerful. Not because they are magic, but because they help rebuild what the soil has lost. So now that you understand what's really happening underground, let's move to the first simple solution you can start using today. Number 3. Banana Peel Boost Fertilizer. The Kitchen Rescue Booster. One of the simplest ways to start reviving weak plants is something most people throw away every single day: banana peels. At first, it might not look like much, just kitchen waste. But inside those peels is a natural mix of potassium, small amounts of nitrogen, and minerals that support plant recovery, especially for leafy growth and flowering plants. When a plant starts turning yellow or looks tired, it often needs this kind of gentle nutrient support to regain strength. Banana peels break down relatively fast in soil, which means the nutrients become available sooner than many other organic materials. This makes them especially useful for plants that are already stressed and need a quick but natural boost. But here's where many gardeners go wrong. They simply bury whole peels directly into the soil and expect instant result. The problem is that large chunks break down slowly and can sometimes attract pests before they fully decompose. A better approach is to prepare them properly. You can soak banana peels in water for a couple of days to create a mild liquid fertilizer, or dry and crush them into small pieces for easier decomposition. Both methods help the nutrients release in a more controlled way. This works especially well for tomatoes, peppers, flowering plants, and leafy greens that show signs of weakness. But remember, this is not a standalone miracle solution. Think of it as the first layer of recovery, a way to gently wake the plant up and give it energy again while the soil continues to heal. Used correctly, you may start noticing subtle improvements like firmer leaves and slightly better color within a short time. Now that we've looked at restoring basic nutrients from the kitchen, the next step goes even deeper into something that brings the soil itself back to life. Let's move into the next method. Number 4. Rice Water Soil Revival, the Invisible Life Starter. One of the most overlooked garden boosters is something most people pour down the drain without a second thought: rice water. After rinsing rice, the cloudy water left behind carries starch, tiny nutrients, and organic compounds that can quietly transform tired soil over time. On its own, rice water is not a strong fertilizer in the traditional sense. But what makes it powerful is how it supports the living system inside your soil. Because healthy soil is not just about feeding plants, it's about feeding the microbes that feed the plant. When you introduce rice water into the soil, it encourages beneficial microbial activity. These tiny organisms help break down organic matter and make nutrients more available to struggling roots. This is especially helpful for container plants or garden beds that have started to feel inactive or slow. But there's an important balance here. Rice water should always be used fresh or lightly fermented for a short period. If it sits too long, it can start to smell and turn anaerobic, which is not good for plant roots. Used correctly, it can gently re-energize soil life without overwhelming it. Think of it as restarting a slow engine underground. You may not see immediate dramatic changes, but over time, plants begin to respond with healthier growth and better nutrient absorption. And that's the key idea behind all of these methods. We're not forcing plants to grow. We're rebuilding the system that allows them to grow naturally. Now let's move to something stronger in structure and long-term support. Number 5. Eggshell Calcium Fertilizer, the Structural Healer. Eggshells are one of the most reliable natural sources of calcium for your garden, yet most gardeners underestimate their long-term value. Calcium plays a critical role in building strong plant cell walls. Without enough of it, plants become weak, fruits develop issues like rot or deformities, and overall growth slows down. This is especially noticeable in crops like tomatoes and peppers. When calcium levels are low, plants struggle to maintain structure even if other nutrients are present. That's why you might see fruits starting to rot at the bottom while the rest of the plant still looks somewhat healthy. Eggshells help slowly correct this imbalance. The key is preparation. Instead of throwing whole shells into the soil, it's better to dry them completely and crush them into a fine powder. The smaller the pieces, the faster they break down and release calcium into the soil. This is not an instant fertilizer. It works slowly, but its effect is long-lasting. It improves soil quality over time and helps strengthen future growth cycles. Think of it as building the foundation of the plant, not just feeding it for today. But like all natural amendments, it works best when combined with a balanced soil system rather than used alone. As we move forward, we'll look at a much faster-acting liquid method that combines nutrients and microbial activity in one powerful mix. Number 6. Compost Tea Power Boost. The complete plant recovery drink. If there is one method that brings everything together, it's compost tea. Unlike single-ingredient fertilizers, compost tea is a liquid extract made from well-decomposed compost, rich in nutrients and beneficial microbes. This makes it one of the most balanced ways to support struggling plants. When applied to soil, compost tea doesn't just feed the plant directly. It also boosts the biological activity in the soil, helping nutrients become more accessible over time. The preparation is simple but important. You need mature compost, clean water, and proper aeration or occasional stirring during the steeping process. After a short brewing period, the liquid becomes a nutrient-rich solution that can be applied to soil or used as a gentle root soak. But there's a caution here. If compost tea is left too long without oxygen, it can turn anaerobic and lose its benefit. In some cases, it can even harm plants instead of helping them. Used correctly, though, it can noticeably improve plant recovery, especially for stressed or weak garden beds. This is why many experienced gardeners consider it a full support system rather than just a fertilizer. It supports roots, soil life, and nutrient availability all at once. Now that we've covered the core methods, let's quickly go over a few final expert adjustments that can make all of these fertilizers work even better in your garden. Before you start applying any of these fertilizers regularly, there are a few simple adjustments that can make a big difference in your result. First, timing matters. Feeding plants during cooler parts of the day helps reduce stress and improves absorption. Midday heat can sometimes slow down how plants respond. Second, avoid stacking all fertilizers at once. Even natural inputs can overwhelm soil if overused. It's better to rotate them slowly and observe how your plants respond. Watering balance is also critical. Too much water can wash away nutrients, while too little can stop them from moving through the soil properly. And finally, remember that different plants respond differently depending on climate, soil type, and container size. What works quickly in one garden may take longer in another. Patience and observation are part of the process. Now let's bring everything together in the final conclusion. So here's the big takeaway from everything we covered today. Most struggling plants are not lost cases. In many situations, they are simply reacting to poor soil conditions and missing nutrients. And the good news is, you don't always need expensive fertilizers to fix that. From banana peels and rice water to eggshells, compost tea, and coffee grounds, these simple homemade solutions can slowly rebuild your soil and help your plants recover naturally. The key is consistency, not intensity. Start with just one method. Observe how your plants respond. Then gradually build your soil back into a living system again. Now I'm curious, which of these methods are you most excited to try in your own garden? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this helpful, consider subscribing for more simple, real-world gardening solutions that actually work in everyday gardens.